Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Welcome. It is now day 7 of Kwanzaa. It's officially over on New Year's Day actually, but today is the 2nd of January, and as I've mentioned before, I'm a day behind because I had a day where I wasn't able to get my practice in. So yeah, here we are. So day 7 is Imani. Imani, which means faith. So Imani is what we're looking at today. I have a friend, and I don't know if this is her chosen name or if it is her family name, but her last name is Imani. And she's amazing. She's a really remarkable person. At any rate, so how strong my faith is in my 1, self, 2, family, and 3, community. So the first 3 cards are about faith as it applies to self, family, and community. Then the further 4, how do I encourage my family and community to grow, to make accomplishment, to value accomplishment and success, to keep commitments, and to stay on purpose. So that's where we're going today. And it's not surprising. I mean, the answers that I have to these were really, not terribly surprising to me. And a very, again, an easier interpretation, I think. These were more flowing. And that, as I look back at my journal entries from the last 2 years, that seems to be the case. That by the time I get to like days 5, 6, and 7, it's a lot more straightforward and fluid. And I find that that's definitely the case this year, where I'm using one deck. So the way that the deck communicates with me on all 7 days has been really helpful because it's coming through as the same voice. It's easier to identify patterns and therefore identify messages and spaces where there is a really deep truth and a thread that's consistent that I need to really pay attention to, if that makes sense. So let's see. First we have the 5 of coins, and that's kind of sad. That was the first prompt, which is, how strong is my faith in myself? It's either a sad statement or a really positive one. I'm not really sure which. I think I'm going to say that my indecision indicates that I'm probably lacking some faith in myself a little bit. A patient of mine from our chiropractic office gave me the most beautiful Christmas present this year. She did a digital portrait of Noah for me, which I wish I had brought in here, but I didn't think about it because this was not expected. And she also gave the doc and I, an Unravel Your Year 2022. And it starts with prompts asking you to unravel 2021. And in unraveling 2021 and spending a lot of time, as you could see there from the beginning, where there's a lot of pages written in and so forth, I was able to really just look at and identify things that had happened over the year. And that included a lot of really positive things. So in many respects, I feel like I got through the year, in retrospect. I mean, I'm a pretty buoyant person, no pun intended, because this is a boat. I laugh a lot. I tend to take things as they come. I often don't identify how difficult things were until they've passed, right? Until I'm through them. Sometimes I anticipate difficulty, and I'll have to get past that anticipation of difficulty or pain or suffering before I can really confront whatever it is that I have to go towards. And other times I have no idea. I'm just going through the world in the way that I do, expecting that I will have the tools to get through whatever comes next, only to realize afterwards that I just went through something really difficult. Like, how did I get through that? I don't even know how I got through that because I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I was just thinking about getting from the next thing to the next thing after that. yeah, I mean, similarly, I sometimes look back on things and go, wow, I thought that was hard. That wasn't hard at all. You know, my perception of that was so skewed. How did that, and it's interesting, the experience we have in a moment and then the after effect of it, right? So I kind of feel in some respects like I got through 2021 a little bit. This is a terrible analogy because it's really it's disproportionate, right? But it feels like I was, um, I felt very, like, the Five of Coins is appropriate. I was going to say, felt a little bit like a refugee, um, going from pillar to post, trying to find a way to get things done, get through things, survive things, and yet kind of denying that in some respects how difficult that was, and choosing instead to say, oh, this is actually not so bad, this is not so hard, which means that I probably really did not give myself the space at the time to experience how difficult things were as they were coming up. And that's not necessarily a good thing. It often means that I end up with things that are unresolved, that later, after the fact, I kind of feel, I don't know, disappointed about or upset about or sad about later, because I didn't afford them the time or reflection that was necessary to really resolve things as they were occurring. And that was surely how I dealt with last year. And that's unfortunate because it has shaken my faith in myself a little bit, and at the same time, there is such a power in being willing to just trudge forth into something new. This is a boat. We've had the Five of Coins here on another day. This is a boat filled with refugees from North Africa headed towards Europe, not knowing whether they're going to survive the trip or whether they're going to make it. They're hoping to make it. They're hoping that when they get there, things will be better, things will be easier. I think that's in some ways that describes my faith in myself. Instead of taking charge and making choices that are really active, in the last year, although that's not entirely true, I did make some active choices, but I feel like I could have made more active choices. There are times where I kind of buried my head in the sand like an ostrich instead of actively approaching something. Okay, I think that's fair. So, there are many actions that I'm preparing to take in 2022, which will assist my ability to feel more like I'm the one in a position, I'm more empowered, that I can make those choices. So faith in family and community, pretty strong. Those are the second two prompts. So number 2 is how strong is my faith in my family, and prompt 3, in my community. So, with Papa Gord in the position of family, it would seem that I feel, and I absolutely agree with this, very supported, especially emotionally. Like I feel held, I feel safe. We have our arguments and disagreements, which we had plenty of over the last year, but they always end up being, they're safe. It's safe to have those arguments. They don't become situations where nobody's safe to be who they are anymore. That really stopped right away with the pandemic. And it's been one of the biggest gifts, honestly. If we could say there were any gifts, and there always are, right? It's hard in the moment to see them sometimes, but there always are. How strong is my faith in my community? Very strong. The people I surround myself with help me keep my head on straight. We're looking at the swords or the blades here. They help me keep my head on straight. They, my faith in the ability of the people I surround myself with, or who are in my immediate community, is it's powerful. I know they've got my back. I know they've got my back. So, yeah, so those are quite positive. Then prompt number 4, we shift direction a little bit here. It becomes, how do I encourage my family and community to fill in the blank? So the first one is, how do I encourage family and community to grow? Here it is again, the death card. How do I encourage family and community to grow? I do it through my own growth, through my own willingness to relinquish what isn't working and let it putrefy and fall away. Through my own willingness to do that over and over and over and over again. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a life habit or a life pattern to be that way. And I kind of love it that's, I don't know, it's helped in terms of embracing my my year card this year. Seeing it repeatedly brought up in different spreads, for Kwanzaa has been extremely helpful in terms of reconciling that energy and understanding it better and understanding what it means in terms of coming into the next year. This is something I practice. Letting things go, recognizing this doesn't work anymore. I'm not going to do this. I'm done with XYZ, and I'm moving on now. So it's a very positive thing to see. I help my family and community or encourage them to grow through being willing to do that myself. And I think by modeling that, the 2 of Blades here is how I encourage family and community to value accomplishment and success. So this is an interesting thing. I mean, something I've recognized every year, this kind of puts me back into a place of like, oh, right, you can't, when you're taking or borrowing from or making use of something that is culturally different than where you stand, where you live most of your life. As an outsider, you can't necessarily judge it or understand it from your own perspective. It makes you shift into a different one in order to expand a little bit and understand your own situation differently or from a new perspective. I hope that makes sense. So I'm reminded repeatedly, like, again, the white community just comes from a completely different space with regards to the idea of what community is, what it does, how it functions, how it should or shouldn't function, etc. And it shines a light on just how unhealthy it can be. It could be outrageously unhealthy. So when I think in terms of like how the white community, of which I am, born, raised, and in large part, in the greatest part, I spend my time with, right? Because we often tend to do that, even when we have diverse groups of friends and colleagues. The truth of the matter is that my parents and family are white, and the 2 people I see every day and work with the most are also white, and so is my partner. So, that by itself is going to change things. How do I encourage family and community to value accomplishment and success, where accomplishment and success are something by which your entire identity as a human being in white dominant culture is judged, right? And that's just the truth. That is just how it goes. You are judged and held up as being somebody who is valuable or not valuable, right? As a human being, here's a big part of our problem, right? Based on your ability to accomplish things and be successful. Okay? So, if you're not demonstrating that in a way that is valued by that dominant culture as well, you may as well just, consider yourself to be worthless. And that's really just, that is how I experienced it. And that is what I see in the world generally when I hear people talking about how they value their own accomplishment and success. Unless it is buying them things and making, sustaining an unsustainable amount of growth, right? Or somehow encouraging and supporting an unsustainable amount of growth, you don't generally hear a lot of value placed, right, on something as being an accomplishment or being a person as being successful. All right, there's a lot in there for me, and a lot in there for all of us. So this is an interesting answer because it's absolutely the case. The Two of Blades. Again, Courtney talks about the Two of Blades as being sort of a shaman who, again, is relinquishing egoic attachment in order to, and getting distance in order to find balance and in order to access spirit and truth rather than bias and ego. And when you look at your own ability to accomplish and be successful from a more distant perspective and to include all possible factors and conditions, right? So what was the person up, it's the thing about, you can't, I'm going to mess this one up. I probably should just leave it. The thing about, fish climbing a tree, for those of you who may have heard this one, the thing about Einstein saying you can't decide, it's attributed to Einstein. Who knows whether it is or not, but the image of it really rang about. If you judge a fish based on its ability to climb a tree, you're going to find that the fish is left, is useless, right? It doesn't have any skills. So, based on that, as a lot of us find ourselves in a world where the skills that we have are not the ones that the society or culture values, it can be very difficult to identify moments of accomplishment or success. And I tend to find that because I fall into that category in so many ways, at least I feel like I do, because I know I don't, measure, I'm going to use my air quotes, measure up. See also extremely overeducated, multiple master's degrees and multiple master's degrees started in addition to that and not completed, and so forth, and not holding a job that has that kind of income, right? Kind of at this point, minimum wage. How I'm not a moniker of success based on that. But if you look at conditions and you look at all of the factors involved, take ego out of it, take bias, expectation, etc. out of it, and just look at the bigger picture, the balance of it is actually, there's a great deal of accomplishment and success to many of the things that I have done anyway. Okay. And I think the way that I tend to encourage family and community is through that kind of space. Get a distance, measure it up, weigh it up. Look, let's take the biases and name them. Here's what the culture expects. Here's what, here are the family expectations. Here's what the conditions surrounding this person or situation were. Here's what actions they took. When we weigh all of those factors together, then what do we see? Right? And that's how I tend to do it, because I like to help people find more balance and equilibrium around those things. I could do better at doing that for myself. Frankly, I'm realizing, like, looking at this and thinking about it, I used to be exceptionally good at that. I've been awfully hard on myself this year. Awfully, awfully hard on myself. And not in a really helpful way, in a really kind of like, just pull it together, just get it done, just deal with, like, whoa. And that's not really the inner voice that I tend to listen to most that said, it was not an unhelpful thing. There were times where that level of admonishment was necessary to help shake me out of um, literal depression, um, and eventually, move towards something else. I needed that, because the usual was not, the usual level of compassion was becoming more of an excuse under those circumstances. That said, I could have spent more time then pausing, reflecting, considering, examining, and I didn't. But this is a new year. So there will probably be a lot more of that, because how else can I then offer that to the community if I'm not embodying it, right? Embody that change. Something doesn't work, let it fall away. All right. Then how do I encourage family and community to keep commitments? I think that's fascinating. Wow. Yeah. Again, not necessarily something, I've really thought that much about. I don't know. I'm struggling with this prompt today, this time. How do I encourage family and community to keep commitments? I would say probably again by standing my ground and keeping my own commitments, with that seven of staffs, holding out and keeping commitments even when it feels like things are stacked against me, which is what I tend to do. If I've said I'm going to do something, by God, I'm going to do it. If I give you my word on something, it starts to become crucial. It doesn't matter how many things are stacked up. I'm gonna do it anyway. So again, probably through leading by example, or maybe choosing to step up and help them keep a commitment. I have done a fair bit of that. Let me help you keep this commitment. Even though all of these things have stepped in and they're in the way and make it seem like this isn't possible. Let's figure this out. So I will also step in to help if someone is struggling to keep a commitment or keep something pulled together. Yeah. Then finally we have, how do I encourage my family and community to stay on purpose? And this Lovers card is so beautiful. And it's interesting again where the majors show up, isn't it? I'm always amazed in spreads. I guess this is something I'm probably very good at, or it's important to recognize that this is how this is being done because it works, right? How do I encourage family and community to stay on purpose? Courtney writes in here, look to the energy of the lovers to call for balance and unity. The most effective approach, let's see. Well, I'll read this whole paragraph. I think it all applies. She writes, look to the energy of the lovers to call for balance and unity. Both look in opposite directions off into the distance. Although their gazes may be averted and their focus is different, they stay connected. Is that connection one that will bring about a unified front or eventually bring imbalance and separation? There may be an important decision to be made and facts to be considered. The most effective approach is understanding a sense of wholeness at the root of all that governs you. Unity is a powerful tool, whether in resistance or in growth. Allow the lovers to take you on a journey to a stronger foundation of who you are. So, it's, I guess, again, it's through unity and balance, to stay on purpose. Through, how do I encourage family and community to stay on purpose? Through unity, through balance. Yeah. understanding a sense of wholeness at the root of all that governs. You know, yeah, yeah. And I feel like I also do that through encouragement. You know, I like to play devil's advocate. People are hard on themselves. I'm hard on myself. Because of that, I like to play devil's advocate. You know, look at all of the things that you've managed to accomplish. Look at all of the good that's come out of this situation. Look at the kind of strength that you've just found in that relationship with this person who feels adversarial, even though um, you managed to do these things and get them accomplished. You know, what about that? So I tend to do a lot of that, you know, with family and friends and community. Yeah. So there we go. Um, yeah. So if you're here, and I think probably Jennifer Ball is the only person I know of for sure who's been here the whole time. So Jennifer, thank you. Tons of love to you. I'm so grateful that you've been here for this. Um, yeah, it's been a journey this year. It's really been a journey. It feels very solitary, without anyone else in the community that I'm aware of, at least, also participating. But it has been. It's always very very full of opportunities for growth. Very full. So there we go. All right, friends. I will see you again very soon, no doubt. I seem to be churning stuff out left, right, and center here. So take care, and we'll talk again soon. Tons of love to you. Bye.